Welcome back to the dinner table. This is the elementary overview of Congress, specifically to the House of Representatives. Congress is divided into two parts. You have the United States Senate, which meets in the north wing of the Capitol and is sometimes referred to as the upper house. Then you have the House of Representatives, which meets in the south wing of the Capitol and is sometimes referred to as the lower. Members of the Senate are referred to as senators, while members of the House of Representatives are commonly referred to as a congressman or congresswoman. In the House of Representatives, there are 435 members, and this is by law. It's apportioned among states according to the state's populations in the federal census. Every state is entitled to at least one member, and California, being the largest currently, has 53, I believe. In the House of Representatives, there are committees and subcommittees. This is a very interesting area. There are 20 standing committees, 1 select committee, 104 subcommittees, and 4 joint committees. The joint committees are formed of members of the House and members of the Senate. Interesting, using just committees that start with the letter A, there are on average 16 members in each subcommittee and 52 members in each standing committee. If the averages ran true all the way across all standing committees and subcommittees, this would mean that each member would sit on between 6 and 7 committees and subcommittees. Considering that there is a committee of the whole, which every member belongs to, this could put the number between 6 and 8 committees or subcommittees each member would sit on. Special powers for the House of Representatives. Only the House of Representatives may impeach. This is the president or other federal officers. This is for treason, bribery, other big high crimes, and misdemeanors. The House of Representatives impeaches, the Senate tries the impeachment. The House of Representatives also has the power to initiate revenue bills. This means that if there is a revenue bill, it has to originate from the House of Representatives. They also have this with spending. A lot of times a spending bill will be created in either, but when it's created in the Senate and it goes to the House just fails to recognize it, and that's their way of saying it has to start here. Not too long ago, a year or so ago, Michelle Bachmann was on the news speaking about the Senate acting in what she called an unconstitutional manner by initiating a revenue bill. The House of Representatives hierarchy is you have the Speaker of the House, and then underneath the Speaker you have a majority and a minority. And the majority is based on the party that has the most members. The minority is the party that has the least amount of members. On the majority side, you have a majority leader. Underneath that, you have majority whip. Underneath that, in this case, I'll reference the Republican Party as they are currently the majority party. You would have the Republican Conference Chair. Underneath that, you would have the House Republican Policy Committee Chair. On the minority side, you would have the minority leader. Then you would have the minority whip. And then underneath that, you would have the Assistant Democratic Leader. And underneath that, you would have the Democratic Caucus Chair. Talk just a little bit, real quick, about the first three. The Speaker of the House is the highest ranking member of the U.S. House of Representatives. While there's no constitutional requirement, as a practical matter, the Speaker always belongs to the majority party and serves as the party's leader. Probably the most notable of this position is they are the second in line to follow the president should he or she become unable to hold office, right behind the vice president. Onto the House Majority Leader. They're second to the Speaker of the House of Representatives. While there's no official constitutional responsibilities, historically the Majority Leader has worked closely with the Speaker and been responsible for scheduling legislation for floor consideration. The Majority Leader also helps plan daily, weekly, and annual legislative agendas, consults with members to gauge the climate on particular issues, urges colleagues to support or defeat measures on the floor, and works to advance the goals of the majority party. Lastly, the majority leader is also responsible for monitoring floor activities, particularly the opposition party's parliamentary maneuvers. For the House minority leader, they're the counterpart of the Speaker of the House. The minority leader speaks for the minority party and its policies, strives to protect the minority's rights, and devises parliamentary strategies and tactics for maximizing the influence of the minority party on legislative outcomes. In addition, the minority leader chairs the party's committee assignment panel and, similar to the Speaker of the House, serves as a member of the House Permanent Select Committee on Intelligence. And the third one to talk about, I think, is the most interesting of the three because of how much it shows party playing a role in the activities, the daily activities and decisions that are made within the House of Representatives. These are House whips. Both the majority and the minority party have them. The term whip is originally derived from the British fox hunting term whipper-in, which describes the person responsible for keeping the foxhounds from leaving the pack. The title was first used in the British House of Commons in the late 1700s to describe the officials responsible for gathering votes on a given issue. Both the majority whip and minority whip are responsible for mobilizing the party vote on important legislation, acting as a liaison between members and the leadership, and coordinating strategy within their respective parties. Whips are responsible for calculating head counts prior to important votes. The undecided members are important when close votes are expected and become prime targets for the persuasive efforts of the whips. These counts help the Speaker make important decisions such as when a measure is ready for the floor, or the minority leader in planning opposition to a bill. Each whip has a staff of employees and supervises numerous colleagues who serve as assistant whips. Chief deputy whips, at-large whips, zone or regional whips. Whips also serve a communications role, expressing the intentions and wishes of the Speaker or minority leader, and issue both daily and weekly whip notices announcing changes to the floor schedule to help members plan their travel. The House Majority Whip is the third-ranking member of the majority party behind both the Speaker and the majority leader. The House Minority Whip is the second-ranking member of the minority party behind only the minority leader. These were talked about to kind of demonstrate how much of a role the party plays in who can talk, when they can talk, possibly even what they can say, whether or not a bill is going to be allowed on the floor, when it'll be allowed on the floor, and so forth. So this really, I think, plays into getting an idea of what's going to be out there for whoever you elect to go up against if they're elected. It also plays a big role in showing how when a member is up for re-election, whether or not they're going to receive party support to be re-elected, possibly even to the point that another individual would receive the party support in opposition of an individual. Their term of office is 2 years. The elections for the House of Representatives are held every even-numbered year. The average pay for a member of the House of Representatives is $174,000 per year. This does not include things like travel, and there's some other ones. The minimum amount for travel is $9,700 plus an additional amount based on a formula that uses the distance from DC to the furthest point in the congressional district from Washington. They also have benefits such as the franking privilege, which allows them to mail official documents and packages for free. Retirement and benefits. For this, there are 2 retirement plans. I'm going to talk about the FERS plan, which is the newer one and applies to all people that are coming in to serve currently. This FERS plan, I believe, stands for the Federal Employee Retirement System, and it is for anyone hired after December 31st, 1983. While there are a few different conditions in which you can retire, the easy one to understand is at 62 years of age. If you have 5 years of congressional service, you can retire. Your retirement is based on years of service plus the average 3 highest years salary. As far as health benefits go, they have the same plans available to them as other federal employees. The average staff of a member of the House of Representatives is, in accordance with the MRA, the Members Representational Allowance. A representative staff allowance can be used to hire up to 18 permanent staff and 4 non-permanent staff. So that's a total of 22 staff that can be used between Washington and their home state, and this would be Utah, in the 4th Congressional. The max staff salary as of 2005 is $156,848. So a staff member can receive really good pay. This number 22 does not include staff that is assigned to a committee or a subcommittee that the member would belong to. If they belong to a committee or a subcommittee, their staff for that committee can be used also by the member. Talk a little bit about bills. I'm going to put a link in on this that will take you to a website that shows what looks like a game board, and it does a really good job of depicting the path a bill takes from conception to completion, whether that is being signed into law or, as they say, killed or dead. And it shows along the path the different stages and what happens to the bill depending on the outcome of those stages. It's great to look at. It's fairly complex, the path the bill takes, so that's why I'm going to put it in as a link. On a side note, though, is relating to bills. Since 1973, about 10,167 new federal bills have been passed. That's an average about 535 bills per session. That's a lot considering there's 365 days in a year, and that number 535 is just the bills that were passed. If you take into consideration those that were not passed, you really have to ask yourself, how is our representative capable of looking after us and possibly even presenting a bill that pertains to us amongst all of that and all of the committees and subcommittees. But then on a little mind teaser, just take into consideration that out of a bill comes oftentimes multiple federal laws. Now, states model their laws after a federal law. As a general rule, a state law cannot be less restrictive than a federal law. However, it can be more restrictive than the federal law. So when you take that into consideration, just consider that a city also models its laws off of state laws. And again, it in all practice cannot be less restrictive, but can be more restrictive. So the question would be, out of those 535 per session that are being passed, by the time that they equal federal laws and then also equal state laws and city laws, for each bill, how many new laws are you subjected to adhere to and abide by? That's a lot. Going to the oath of office, this is just the oath, I'll read it to you. I, name of member, do solemnly swear or affirm that I will support and defend the Constitution of the United States against all enemies, foreign and domestic, that I will bear true faith and allegiance to do the same, that I take this obligation freely, without any mental reservation or purpose of evasion, and that I will well and faithfully discharge the duties of the office on which I am about to enter, so help me God. Now, aside from the oath of office, there is a ethics commission, and there's ethics rules. I'd suggest reading those. An interesting thing when you're looking at those, a lot of the ethics rules deal with, can the member work another job and get paid? If so, how much? Can they accept money for speaking engagements? Can they accept gifts? What would they have to adhere to in hiring a permanent staff, be it family, friends, things like that? Interestingly enough, my point with this is that both in the oath that I just read you and in the ethics rules that I read, and by all means, if somebody out there wants to correct me on this, do so. I did not find anywhere that it mentioned honesty, personal ethics, or integrity as part of the job. I honestly always thought that part of being a member of Congress was that you swore to be honest, ethical, and have integrity. But as I've had several discussions, it's to uphold the Constitution. Whether or not you're honest and ethical does not play into it. Interesting. We'll wrap it up with a couple of factoids. One of them is that critics say Congress operates under antiquated processes that are inadequate. One of the most interesting of these arguments is that there was a proposed reform that would eliminate seniority as a basis for committal chair. This is really interesting when you consider that seniority plays a huge role in sitting on those committees. So one could argue pretty well both sides of that argument, whether or not that's a good idea. Just an interesting fact. 435 is the total members by law, and that is except in 1959 when it went to 437 upon the admission of Alaska and Hawaii. It returned to 435 4 years later after the 1960 census. Congress as a whole is believed to have reached the zenith of its power during what's known as Reconstruction. That's something, if you want to Google and read on what that is, interesting stuff. And question, how many members have ever been removed from office? The number is 5, and I thought that was pretty small considering how long it's been around. But it appears even smaller when you look at it. 3 of those were removed in 1861 for supporting the Confederacy. So of the 5, majority of them all happened in one spot, one time, and that was for supporting Confederacy. The remaining 2, one was in 1980 for accepting bribes, the other in 2002 for accepting bribes, racketeering, and tax evasion. Finally, for what it's worth, it was just an interesting factoid that all 5 of those members were members of the same party. So that's going to conclude the elementary of the House of Representatives. I hope that that helps and is a good refresher for anyone or new information for anyone. Thanks for joining. See you next time.